let's talk about something really weird that happened back in early 2020. As the world was trying to figure out what was going on, a fascinating economic paradox started to take shape. It was this strange story of a massive global crisis happening at the exact same time as this incredible, explosive opportunity. And that brings us to the big question for this explainer. How on earth can an economy look like it's crashing and booming all at once? It sounds impossible, right? Well, to get to the bottom of it, we have to rewind the clock to the very start of the pandemic. Okay, first up, let's set the stage. We all remember this moment when the world as we knew it just stopped. Remember March 2020? It felt like it happened overnight, didn't it? Lockdowns just swept across the planet. Streets were empty, shops were boarded up, and the entire physical economy, the world of actual stores and face-to-face business, was basically put on an indefinite pause. It was a shock to the system like nothing we had ever seen before. But here's where the paradox really kicks in. As one massive door to the economy slammed shut, another one was about to get blown clean off its hinges. This was the start of a boom that was truly unlike anything. Think about it. With everyone stuck at home and all the stores closed, where did all that consumer demand go? It couldn't just vanish. It had to find a new place to go. And boy, did it ever. It created this absolute tidal wave of online shopping, with people ordering literally everything from their couches. And the speed of this shift was just mind-blowing. Let's use some data from Indonesia as an example. If you treat January 2020 as the normal baseline, by March, online sales had already more than tripled. But that was just the beginning. By April, they had shot up by a staggering 480%. That's not a typo. That's nearly a five-fold increase in just a few months. But here's the thing. This wasn't just people buying more of the same old stuff. Oh no, people's entire lives had changed, so their priorities changed, and their online shopping carts reflected this new reality. And this chart tells that story perfectly. Just take a look. Sales of sports products, yeah, they were up a very healthy 210%, but that was completely dwarfed by food and beverages. That category exploded by over 1,000%. It's such a clear picture of a world pivoting from going out to staying in. And this pivot created booms everywhere else, too. It all makes perfect sense when you think about it. Medical devices for safety, of course. Communication gear, because everyone needed a better webcam for those endless Zoom calls. Household equipment for a home that was suddenly also an office, a gym, and a school. The digital marketplace basically rebuilt itself around our living rooms. Okay, so the digital world is on fire. Things are booming. But that's only one half of the equation. And the other half was, well, not pretty at all. This e-commerce growth just doesn't tell the whole story. Which brings us right back to our central paradox. Was this digital gold rush enough to save the day for the entire economy? The answer, as you might have guessed, is a really clear no. This slide really lays it all out, side by side. On the one hand, you have these unbelievable growth numbers from the online world, but on the other, the physical economy was getting hit by a perfect storm. International trade was a mess, tax revenue was dropping like a rock as businesses closed, and the global supply chains that we all rely on were just broken. So let's talk more about those broken supply chains, because this wasn't just a small, isolated problem. This was a global shockwave that was felt absolutely everywhere. You see, a huge piece of the puzzle is just how much the modern world relies on China to make things. So when factories there had to slow down because of their own lockdowns, it created this massive domino effect. All of a sudden, countries around the world couldn't get the basic parts and materials they needed. And to make this super clear, let's look at Indonesia again. So many of its most important industries depend on raw materials from China. We're talking everything from chips for electronics to the plastics and fabrics used in everyday goods. When those shipments stopped, assembly lines in Indonesia just went silent. And this isn't just a vague feeling that things were slowing down. Economists can actually measure these ripple effects with incredible precision. Using something called sensitivity analysis, they can calculate exactly how a slowdown in one part of the world hurts another, and it shows just how deeply connected we all are. This table is the proof. A tiny 1% slowdown in China's huge economy directly shaves almost 0.1% off Indonesia's GDP. But look, it wasn't just China. A 1% dip in the EU or the US had similar effects. Now, those might seem like really small numbers, but they represent billions and billions in lost economic output. It proves that, in our modern world, no economy is an island.
So we've seen the two sides of this coin, the digital boom and the physical crisis. What's the ultimate takeaway from this whole wild period? What have we really learned?
You know, this quote from Tafik Hidayat, whose research this explainer is based on, just nails it. E-commerce stopped being just a convenience. It became an essential service. It was the solution, a lifeline that allowed society to keep functioning and let people get what they needed safely. At the end of the day, the pandemic was like a giant stress test for the global economy, and it showed us two very different faces. It revealed a digital economy that was surprisingly tough, adaptable, and resilient. And at the exact same time, it exposed just how fragile our physical world, our supply chains, our reliance on face-to-face interaction really was. What we all lived through was a massive forced acceleration. We basically crammed what could have been 10 years of digital change into just one. And that leaves us with the big, lingering question. How many of those new habits, from remote work to online everything, are now just a permanent part of our world? And what new paradoxes will that create down the road?